Imagine carrying your dead child for 17 days, swimming over 1,000 miles, refusing to let go even as the body decays and slips away. That is what a killer whale named Tahlequah did in 2018. And her journey forces us to ask a question that science is only beginning to answer. What do animals understand about death? In 2024, researchers documented 5 cases of Asian elephants burying their dead calves in northern India's Bengal region. The elephants carried the calves by their trunks and legs, sometimes for hundreds of meters, before burying them in an upright position. The entire herd participated, with footprints of 15 to 20 elephants observed at the burial sites. Night security guards reported that the elephants vocalized loudly for 30 to 40 minutes. However, the interpretation of this behavior is debated. Heidi Riddle, vice chair of the IUCN's Asian Elephant Specialist Group, notes that actions like carrying dead calves or kicking soil over a carcass are normal for Asian elephants, but may not constitute intentional burial. African elephants have also been observed covering dead bodies with vegetation. Witnessing elephants interact with their dead sends chills up one's spine, said researcher George Whittemire. The intensity of their response hints at something deeper than mere curiosity. Primates also display complex responses to death. In an April 2025 study published in Biology Letters, researchers from University College London observed 11 bereaved rhesus macaque mothers at the Caribbean Primate Research Center on Cayo Santiago, an island off the coast of Puerto Rico. The researchers expected the mothers to show signs of grief similar to those of humans, such as lethargy or appetite loss. Instead, they found something different. The bereaved mothers spent less time resting in the first 2 weeks after their infant's death, not more. There were no other behavioral markers of grief like those seen in humans. The researchers described this short-term restlessness as a form of protest grief, similar to what is seen in primate infants separated from their mothers. As co-author Dr. Alicia Carter explained, following the loss of an infant, they had expected the macaque mothers to spend more time resting, as is common among bereaved humans. What they actually observed was the opposite. If macaques grieve, their grief may look nothing like ours. But even where the response differs from human grief, the mothers still showed a measurable behavioral shift, and that shift tells us something important about how they process loss. Domestic animals also grieve. A 2022 study in Scientific Reports surveyed 426 Italian dog owners and found that approximately 86% of dogs showed negative behavioral changes after a companion dog died. They became depressed, lost their appetite, and declined to play. Some dogs searched for their missing companion, waiting by the door or whining. Others became clingy with their owners or withdrew entirely. The study showed that grief is not limited to wild animals. It is something that happens in our own homes, in the animals we share our lives with. But these examples, as compelling as they are not the climax of this story. The climax comes from the ocean. A 2016 study published in the Journal of Mammalogy identified at least 7 species of marine mammals that mourn their dead, including Indo-Pacific bottlenose dolphins, killer whales, spinner dolphins, sperm whales, rhesus dolphins, short-finned pilot whales, and Australian humpback dolphins. The study confirms that adults mourning their dead young is a common and globally widespread behavior in long-lived, highly sociable species. In one observed case, an Indo-Pacific bottlenose dolphin pushed a badly decayed corpse through the water on its fin, refusing to let go. In another instance, a killer whale named L72 was seen carrying a dead newborn in her mouth, trying to keep it at the surface. These behaviors are not isolated incidents. They happen across species and across oceans, suggesting that grief may be deeply rooted in the biology of social mammals. Then there is Tahlequah. In 2018, this 20-year-old female killer whale gave birth to a calf that died within hours on July 24th. What happened next stunned the world. Tahlequah balanced the dead calf on her head and pushed it through the water, her massive body gliding through the cold, dark waters of the Pacific. She carried it for 17 straight days, an eternity in the life of a wild animal, traveling an estimated 1,600 kilometers, over 1,000 miles of open ocean. She repeatedly retrieved the body when it slipped away, diving down again and again to recover it, refusing to let it sink into the depths. Day after day, she pushed on, her body straining against the weight of the calf and the pull of the currents. Researchers watched with a mixture of scientific fascination and deep concern, tracking her every move. They observed that Tahlequah could not hunt for food while she carried her dead calf this way. Ken Balcom, founder of the Center for Whale Research, estimated she had carried the calf more than 1,000 miles. Deborah Giles, a researcher who observed the behavior, said, "You cannot interpret it any other way." Researchers were worried that the time and energy spent clinging to the infant's body could take away from time spent foraging or feeding. They watched as she struggled, day after day, refusing to let go. Her pod stayed with her, swimming alongside, sometimes taking turns carrying the body so she could rest. For 17 days, she swam. For 17 days, she carried. For 17 days, she grieved. What made the story even more remarkable was that other members of her pod helped her carry the calf. They swam alongside her, taking turns holding the body, as if they understood what she was going through. Witnesses described the group gathering in a cove for what looked like a ritual or ceremony after the baby died. It was not just Tahlequah grieving. It was her entire family. In the end, she appeared to make it through physically unharmed, and researchers later reported she was back to feeding and frolicking with her pod. But the emotional toll was impossible to measure. She had given everything she had to hold on to her baby, and in doing so, she had shown the world something profound about the depth of animal grief. This is where the research reaches its peak. Tahlequah was not just responding to an immediate stimulus. She was making a sustained, deliberate choice to carry her dead calf for weeks, traveling hundreds of kilometers. She understood something had changed, and her response was a persistent, active refusal to let go. "They are in pain and stressed. They know something is wrong," said study co-author Melissa Regente. The behaviors observed in Tahlequah and other marine mammals suggest that grief may be a deeply ingrained response to loss, one that crosses species boundaries. Even crows display remarkable behaviors around death. They gather around dead members of their own species in what are often called crow funerals. Research by ornithologist Kaylee Swift at the University of Washington has shown that crows use these gatherings as opportunities for social learning and danger assessment. Wild American crows respond strongly to dead members of their own species, but not to dead unrelated birds. The presence of a dead crow stimulates the decision-making and memory regions of the crow's brain. Crows also exhibit long-term behavioral shifts after these encounters, becoming more wary when foraging near locations of death. They are not just curious. They are learning, remembering, and sharing that knowledge. But do animals truly understand death? Scientists remain cautious. Some researchers believe that animals may not understand death as permanent and irreversible in the way that humans do. Instead, they may be responding to the immediate absence of a companion, the loss of a social bond, or the presence of a dead body as a cue for danger. As Becky Miller, a researcher specializing in the philosophy of cognitive sciences at Cardiff University, explains, "It's hard to see this behavior without thinking of it through the lens of grief." She notes that animals don't treat dead infants the same way they would treat an immobile but living infant, suggesting they understand something has changed. The field of comparative thanatology continues to grow, and with it, our understanding of how animals perceive and respond to death. But for all the research, one question remains. when Tahlequah carried her dead calf for 17 days across 1,000 miles of ocean. What was she thinking on day 17?